Welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, having my monthly conversation with Tom Caldwell. He, of course, is chairman of Caldwell Securities in Toronto. Tom, I do want to talk a little bit about the Bank of Canada. They left the interest rates steady in the last announcement. Any thoughts, any reaction to that? Any thoughts what that means for inflation and interest rates in the future?
I think they're starting to see the economy is in fact slowing. They are starting to see inflationary pressures are somewhat easing. You're still going to have inflationary pressures on the labor front. I mean, because labor have fallen behind. I mean, the costs of living are going up,
Right.
and you need more to live on. So inflation in itself creates this lag effect where organized and unorganized labor want more. And that's quite understandable. So that's probably the tail end of inflation. So you're seeing inflation ease, you're seeing the economy ease. I was asked earlier today the difference between a recession and a depression. Well, a recession is when it happens to somebody else. A depression is when it happens to you. And you're starting to see, now again, my world is fairly small looking at the core area in downtown Toronto.
Right.
It's going into a recession, make no mistake. I've been in restaurants in the last month or so that you usually needed reservations. One of them, a very popular restaurant, I'm not going to name it, and I was having lunch there one day, and there were only 4 tables.
Really?
Yeah. And so you're seeing it right across in the path downstairs. Now you're seeing stores closed permanently. People saying, "Oh, business, the vacancies are the vacancies don't count yet because the leases haven't come due."
Okay.
But less and less people are coming downtown for all kinds of reasons,
Yeah.
whether it be COVID fallout, whether it be the insanity of trying to drive in Toronto, or a hazardous subway system, or whatever. It's just not happening. So you're seeing underneath the statistics, you're starting to see real slowdown. I don't know whether the Bank of Canada used to contact us years ago to ask what our Canadian tire dealers were saying, because we had a lot of Canadian tire dealers, and they were a good indicator of how the economy was going. And we'd know long before the government came out with the statistics what is actually happening in real terms. But I think we're seeing in real terms, maybe not hitting the statistics, that the slowdown has already started. So it makes sense for the Bank of Canada to just stop for the time being, and because there's lag effects to interest rates. They caused this mess by printing all this money at low interest rates and throwing it around during COVID, and now they're saying we're going to cure it. But I think they're realizing, hopefully, that they're doing more damage than good right now. Just stop for the time being.
Right. Well, I'm glad you mentioned the state of the economy too, because there was, I got to say, even I was confused by these latest numbers about zero growth or negative growth. Some headlines blared out, we're in a recession. Maybe you can shed some light. I thought maybe it was just a month-to-month set of numbers on our GDP, which was, usually we measure recessions by quarters, not by month to month. But can you shed any light on that at all, Tom?
I spend more, being in the investment business, I and my associate, we talk to lots of people, lots of business people. You get a feel of how places are going.
Right.
It might be subjective. It may not be a broad brush sample, but, having graduated in economics, which is, it's not particularly helpful, that I tell you. But one thing I do know is the numbers are so flawed anyway.
Right.
But I think anybody can tell and I'm just talking about the core in Toronto.
Yeah.
Businesses are still, so the economy is not a homogeneous thing. We've done our best to destroy the energy sector as we could. So we really have been in an anti-business world, and naturally that's going to have effects. The system is very resilient, but only for so many years can it put up with hostility, whether it be from taxes, regulation, policy, climate change, et cetera, et cetera. And I was saying to somebody recently about Toronto, the city council in Toronto made a decision. You have a decision to make: business or bikes. That's it. Because the guys who are creating jobs aren't riding bikes down here, and the guys who are doing the consuming aren't riding. And people come from a lot further than bike territory, but they've made this decision, and that's impacting tourism. Tourists don't come here anymore. They don't drive here anymore. They it's too hard. You'll hear people saying this is insane.
Yeah.
So they made a decision. So a lot of these are consequences of flawed political process. We have too many ideologues telling everybody how they should live their life, and there is an economic impact to that. So it's a whole array of influences slowing things down. And Canada is a little bit out of step with the U.S. The U.S. is still a strong, resilient economy in many, many ways,
Yeah.
but we're not. We're quite vulnerable here, and we're getting more vulnerable, and we need some changes. So we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens, and I kind of agree with you that I don't know whether we're in a recession now. I don't know. As you say, the numbers are the numbers, and they sometimes lag, but it doesn't feel like it did 6 months ago. We're going to take another break, and Tom will be back with us. Please stay with us too.